Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Austin Cohen here, and we are on the webinar Ordinary to Extraordinary. And I'm super excited tonight. We have one of my biggest mentors, someone who's coached me pretty much since day one of joining the business world. And that's Dr. Rick Markson down in Florida. So, Rick, welcome to the call.
Austin, thank you so much for having me. It's nice when the student starts to school the teacher. I like it.
Well, everything we talk about tonight is probably stuff you've told me, so it'll be pretty fascinating to hear. But
at least somebody listens to me, so that's good.
Hey man, and it shows all around. And what's cool is I'm excited to share a lot of these principles with a lot of all the guests on the call tonight. And then, of course, we obviously put this on replay on YouTube. And for those of you that aren't doing it yet, make sure you go to iTunes and follow the podcast Ordinary to Extraordinary, where we've interviewed coaches just like Dr. Markson. We're going to talk about visualization, how it's the missing link in fitness. We've interviewed CrossFit Games athletes, professional weightlifters, anyone really in the sports and health arena that can help take you to new heights. Usually you'll find an interview with on that Ordinary to Extraordinary podcast. So we're going to dive into the call tonight because we've got a lot to talk about. But the topic tonight is visualization, the missing link in fitness. And this is something that Dr. Markson shared a lot about with me through my business world, but it also goes into personal world as well as far as competition. So, Rick, why don't you give us, first off, when people hear visualization, people just may be confused on that term and that terminology. So if you could just give us a quick view of what that even means to people.
Absolutely. And, I love that we're specifically honing in on visualization in regards to fitness, but it really does, as you said, have to do with all aspects of life, whether it's your personal life, financial life, prosperity for your business, your physical health, well-being, relationships. So visualization, quite honestly, is just close your eyes and what do you see? What do you see for your future? How detailed can you get in almost predicting or prognosticating the future? And for us, when we talk about the 7 C's of success, that first C is crystal clear vision. Can you see in your mind's eye what you want for your life in those various aspects that I just mentioned? And then do we give you the tools to turn those dreams or turn those visions into reality?
Awesome. And so we're going to stick, the thing that's interesting is a lot of the principles that I've learned from you, you could put them in all of those C categories. I could put the same principles into my business as I do as into my personal relationships, as I do into my finance. But, definitely tonight, I know with people, what you learned tonight on the call with this visualization techniques, use that for not just your fitness, but also for other areas of your life. And Rick, why don't you give us some examples of how someone who's maybe they're a CrossFitter, a basketball player, a baseball player, whatever the sport they do, give us like an example of how someone could start with the technique of visualizing to become better athletes.
Well, I love that we are just jumping right into it. And I happen to be a pretty avid golfer, and there's no better sport than to look at visualization with golfers because it's so obvious. It's so obvious with their routine when you stand behind the ball and you look out into the fairway and they're picking a blade of grass. They're picking a specific spot and they're taking the wind into account and they're taking the slope into account. And they are visualizing exactly the shape of the shot. My son, who's 12, is a basketball player. And as we stand in the driveway and work on his free throw shooting, it's the same thing. Visualize, close your eyes. What do you see? Do you see the rotation of the ball? Do you see it going in every single time? And I'm sure I don't have to tell the listeners to this podcast about the research that's already been done between the difference of actual practice versus visualized practice, and that the visualized practice had to 0.1% the same results as actual practice because of the specificity of being able to visualize in detail.
Yeah. And I believe you're talking about the free throw study.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they had people, what he's talking about is people took basketballs and they had a group that shot them free throws, actually shot free throws looking at the basket, and some that just didn't have a touch of basketball. And exactly like Rick was, just 1%, that very game changer. I think one group improved 25%, right? And the other group, I think, was like 24% as far as changes for just visualizing, which is pretty fascinating.
Right, but the difference is it wasn't just visualizing making the shots. It was visualizing the feel of the basketball on your fingertips, the sound of it hitting the gym floor, the visual rotation backwards of the ball and swish every time. So it goes to show, and this was a work by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. If some of you have never read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, we highly recommend that book. And it's that the human mind cannot tell the difference between an actual event and one imagined vividly and in great detail.
Mm. And does he written any other books that you recommend, or is this the concept that he usually talks about as far as?
Well, in terms of specific visualization or how the power of the mind can create specific physical realities, especially in the aspect of fitness, I think that's a great book that not a lot of people know about, and it really hones in specifically on the visualization aspect. Because if you think about it, Austin, we can spend hours. I mean, you and I can do a 1 week seminar on goal setting, affirmations, meditating, breathing technique, the actual physical fitness. But specifically for tonight, let's talk visualization only. When it comes to visualization, it's about clarity of knowing what you want. It's what can you see down to the detail. And then obviously, once you open your eyes back up, it's what are you willing to do about what you've seen? Do you have the resources to be able to actually make the changes necessary to pull it off?
There's a guy a lot of people in this call know, and his name is Dmitry Klokov, and he's a big power lift. The guy's won the silver medal at the Olympics. I think it was about 9 years ago, whatever it was. And I saw him last year at the 2014 CrossFit Games. And when I saw him, what he did is before he lifted up the weight, he paused for 15 seconds, touching and feeling the grip of the barbell. And I asked him after he finished a lift, I said, Dmitry, what are you doing in those 15 seconds? And he said he visualizes himself from when he pulls the weight up to the end through the entire lift and all movements of the joints. And so a lot of people, what they do is when it comes to weightlifting or working out, they just think of like the beginning, like that one pull, the first pull in the workout. And he said a lot of people will do that and they never finish strong. They have a great first pull, but they can't finish the full movement because they're not seeing it all the way through.
I love that. That's about sort of the completion of the task. And again, let's go back to just obvious examples. Free throw shooting's an easy one. The golfers is an easy one. What about looking at gymnasts or looking at, and specifically if you watch the X Games or the Olympics, on aerial skiers that are doing, quadruple twisting flips as they're standing on the top of the mountain before they go down onto the ramp? You can watch them moving their hands and moving their head and visualizing every twist and every body movement and when they're going to open their eyes and grab their landing in that last millisecond to get a safe landing and obviously to maximize points. I mean, I think that's one of the best extreme examples of visualization because of the danger factor involved in the aerial skiing.
And Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfers of all time. I mean, maybe not now, but definitely was.
He should maybe go back to what he used to do, huh?
I mean, the guy used to go on the course, start at the 18th hole, go backwards, and pick out the hardest spots he would think would be the toughest shots, and he would just close his eyes and visualize himself hitting it from those spots.
Well, it's funny that you brought up Tiger, because here's a great example from a visualization standpoint. If you speak to anyone who watches golf and you ask them about the opinion of what's wrong with Tiger right now, every single one of them says it's all in his head. None of them say it's because of his knee surgery. None of them say it's because of his back surgery. None of them say it's because of his marital problems. Something flipped in his head. So if he can't get crystal clear because he's been working on his swing and he broke it down and built it back up and he's had multiple instructors, crystal clear vision is what gets it done. Once you have that loss and everything gets a little fuzzy, think about the old radio station. If you're old enough to remember this, when you're trying to tune in the radio and it doesn't sound so clear. If you don't have that crystal clear tone where every one of those pieces of static goes away and the exact outcome you're looking for is in your mind, then it brings in other opportunity for mediocrity, for failures. And we're all human. We're all going to fail, and failing forward, Austin, if you want to talk about another great book, because especially in sports, we all are going to fail. But the book Failing Forward by John Maxwell is a great one. It's being able to get as honed in as we possibly can. And if you can't hone in, it's what's causing the interference. We talk about in chiropractic, we're all about removing interference from the physical body, from the nervous system, so the nervous system can heal the body. Same thing in the headspace of high athletes like you all are. And in terms of getting the best fitness, the best response from your body starts between your ears. And what you believe is possible, what you think is possible, and what you know is possible for your next workout, for your next race, for your next run. That's really where it starts, in between your ears.
I tell all the athletes that come into my office, and many of them know a lot of the CrossFit Games athletes, a lot of NBA players, NFL, baseball players. I tell every single one of them, especially I have a CrossFit Games athlete competing this weekend in the CrossFit Games, and I tell her before the workout, while they're announcing everyone's names, just spend 10 seconds, 15 seconds, just taking yourself through there and see yourself finishing as number one in that workout, and then see yourself at the end of this weekend standing on top with the gold, just cheering and being so excited. And you can definitely see the differences of people who do that versus people who just show up there and just go without doing any mental preparation, which is such a huge key part to actually being a great athlete.
Well, Austin, success leaves clues. And when you've done enough interviews of enough high performers and enough different aspects of life, a couple of things tend to be consistent. Number one is they all have a coach. All high performers in any aspect of life have coaches. And the other thing is their mental preparation exceeds their physical preparation.
100% true with every single person we've interviewed so far on these calls.
One of the things I'd like to share with you is I wrote down, when you asked me to participate, I want to give you in my few minutes of being here, 3 tools that I've used. I ran the marathon years ago. I had trained for years and had setback after injury, after setback again, and finally was able to run the country music marathon years ago. And other than my kids being born, that was my favorite day of my life in terms of being willing to sacrifice and then accomplish something. One of the favorite things I've ever done. But there are 3 things that I did and continue to do to create that mental clarity and mental focus. The first thing I did is I created what I call a mental board of directors. And I have that for each aspect of my life. So if you close your eyes and you pretend to walk into one of those old boardrooms like they have in The Apprentice on TV, that old big mahogany table and the dark paneled wood, and who would be at your table? Muhammad Ali would be at my table. People that have overcome obstacles, people that have reached high levels in all aspects of life. Oprah Winfrey would be at my table because she overcame humongous obstacles as an African-American woman to be this successful, going through all the physical torture she did as a young child, and still being able to put that aside and end up on top. Abraham Lincoln for what he stood for. Leonardo da Vinci for being a true Renaissance thinker and being able to invent and be an architect and an artist and an athlete, and all of those things all at once, being able to use both sides of his brain at the same time. Who would you have on your board of directors? Is it just athletes? Is it musicians? Is it business people? Is it financial gurus? Is it the Dalai Lama for his concept of peace in the world? Mother Teresa? What is it for you? So once you have a board of directors, when you're going through life and you're going through the challenges of everyday life, you could always go back into that board of directors and ask any one of those people in your head, say, what would they do? How would they handle this setback? especially when, as an athlete, you deal with injuries, you deal with missing a goal, you deal with failing, you deal sometimes failing publicly, embarrassment, all of those things. You've got to have a team of high thinkers that have already been able to handle those issues, so it helps you not have to learn the hard way. The second thing, I created something called the golden faucet. So what I have also when I do my mental visualization time, I do this in my hour of power in the morning, is when I close my mind, I have this little room in my head. So I visualize myself walking up to this hallway and I open this door and it's totally white in there. It's bright white. You can't really see anything other than the white walls and the white floor, but there's a white sink in the middle of that room with a golden faucet. And if I'm looking to break my personal record in the marathon or in a 10K race or whatever it is, or to get my best lift, or to get my best swim, or a triathlon time, or my best free throw percentage, or whatever it is, I'm going to turn on that faucet. And what comes out of that faucet is success. And the reason why I did a faucet is because every single one of us right now, if we walk into our restroom in our homes, when you turn the faucet on, I'm assuming you paid the bill, you're expecting water to come out. And it's the same thing for your golden faucet. If you're wanting a personal record in speed, when you turn on that faucet, speed comes out. If it's strength, strength comes out. If it's happiness, happiness comes out. If it's an injury, healing comes out. So whatever you're looking to gain more of, just go into your room every day, every morning in your hour of power, and visualize that faucet just pouring out to whatever it is you need. And Austin, finally, something called the theater of the mind. Some of us have the habit of replaying the negative things that have happened to us in life. And we go over and over again about our failures and our letdowns and our defeats. And what I'd like to share in the theater of the mind is if you think of the old movie theater, and if you could visualize the red carpet and the red curtains and those velvet seats, well, if you look up into all the way in the back high part of that theater, there's the old projector room. And what I suggest you do is picture yourself going up the crickety old stairs and pulling off those old movies, those old tapes that don't serve you anymore. They don't serve you as positive anymore. And take the reel off, put it in the corner somewhere, and put on the positive movie. What does the positive movie look like? It looks like you healing from your injuries. It looks like you breaking a personal record. It looks like you continuing to love and enjoy growth and success and getting up one more time than you've been knocked down and never quitting and showing perseverance. And let's continue to play that movie in your theater of your mind every morning. So the only things that you're continuing to feed yourself are the positive many experiences you had, rather than allowing the negative few experiences to overrun your mind. So Austin, those would be my three: the mental board of directors, the golden faucet, and the theater of the mind.
And I've definitely used every single one of these that you're talking about. Thank you. And I've used all these that you're talking about, not just in my athletic life, but as well as in my professional life, my personal life. The people on my board of directors are people who I would want to help me in all categories and all of my top values. My health, my family, my business. Those are like my top 3 values. So I want people who have really strong in those areas. For people who are listening right now, yeah, that's a lot of, it sounds like a lot of things to just add on to what you're already doing. Start with one, just pick one to start, right? I mean, so there's 3 big ones right there, Rick. Which one what's the direction you think people should start with? Board of directors?
I think the theater of the mind comes first, because the people's habits of playing the negative tapes over and over and over and over and over again. And as you know, it takes the mind 90 days to create new habits once you've set those goals. So I think once you stop playing the tapes, it turns that speed of dropping the old bag of rocks by the side of the road so you can continue up your journey up the mountaintop faster. I think if you can create the discipline of doing the daily visualization exercises of clearing up the old stuff, putting in new positive thought, not just the foofy positive mental attitude thinking of the 1970s. I'm just going to be playing the flute in Tibet on a cloud somewhere. We're talking about conscious, making specific choices. We're talking about detailed visualization. I think that's the key. And then obviously some of these other aspects get more and more advanced, but it's a journey. And Austin, and just in our last minute, because I do have to run, here's what I would leave you all with. As we said, when you look at specifically the people in all aspects of life that are super successful, they all have a coach, and they all mentally prepare more than they physically prepare. So don't reinvent the wheel. Don't think there's a shortcut, and don't think you can do it any different. Get the people around you to serve you and support you in your vision and your mission, and mentally prepare more than you physically prepare. So the power between your two ears can continue to contribute to the power you're going to need from your neck down. That'll take light years off of your experiencing to growth to whatever aspect of life that you want.
Awesome. And we'll leave it at that. And thank you so much for joining us on this call tonight, Rick. I know it took a lot of time for you to get out here. You're a busy guy.
Nothing
for those of you that
for you.
Huh?
I look forward to, hopefully you'll have me back.
Oh, definitely, man. And thank you for these nuggets. And for those that are interested, I mean, next year, Dr. Markson has a book coming out. What's the name of your book again, so you can let everyone know?
Yes, my sister and I wrote it together, and it is called Fears Are for Jerks. That was one of the things that our dad, who was a self-help instructor growing up, and as two kids growing up with a father who's a self-help guru, the first lesson we learned as little kids is fears are for jerks. And that was his way of telling us that, in terms of being successful in life, there's no such thing as having fear holding you hostage from attracting and succeeding in any aspect of life you're looking to. So that'll be out in January. Thanks, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know visualization will definitely be in there. And other great strategies. Yeah, a lot of great strategies towards living a good life. So, maybe in December, January, we'll get together, bring you out. Let's talk more about the book. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone for being on the call tonight. Make sure you go to the podcast, Ordinary to Extraordinary on iTunes. And we look forward to seeing everyone in the August webinar. Stay tuned for that on our Facebook page at Dr. Austin Cohen. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, guys.